the show by laundromat owners for laundromat owners with your host, Jordan Berry.
All right, I'm feeling that one. That one is hot. I love that intro. I'm feeling it. What's up, guys? This is Jordan from Laundromat Resource Podcast and laundromatresource.com. And I'm super pumped you're here today because if you listened last week, you know that today is a very, very special episode. And this is why. I read somewhere and I have no idea how legitimate it is, but I'm just going to pretend like it's totally legitimate. But I read or saw or heard somewhere that most podcasts don't make it past 8 episodes. So we are now part of the few, the proud, the podcast that made it to episode 9. So we have made it and we're celebrating. If you're on YouTube, you can see. If not, I am wearing a party hat and I have a little bit of this. Oh. Okay, well, I guess I should have tried that before I did this, but it's one of those little party blower things. I thought it was going to make a noise, but it doesn't. But it does have a unicorn on it, so that's pretty. All right, we are celebrating today, not only because it's our 9th episode, but also pretty much immediately after we uploaded last week's episode 8, we hit 1,000 downloads for our podcast. And I just feel like, I don't know, some people might not be impressed by that, but I feel so blessed and humbled. Legitimately, I feel humbled and blessed that the podcast has been downloaded 1,000 times. And I know that it's because we have such a great community here, but also we've had some amazing guests on. And man, just a huge thank you to everybody who's been on. If you're someone who owns a laundromat and you want to come on here and talk laundromats with me in front of everyone else, man, come do it. Check out laundromatresource.com/podcast guest. I'll put a link in the description or in the show notes. And today is show number 9, the show number 9. And so if you want to check out the show notes page for more information, for all the links that are mentioned today, for everything from the video to the audio to, how to get in contact with Ross, all of that's going to be at laundromatresource.com/show9, all one thing, no spaces or underscores or dashes or anything, just show 9, laundromatresource.com/show9 for the show notes. So check that out if you're interested in that. And today's show is it's riveting. I'm like speechless right now because Ross's story, just the fact that he is on this podcast today, by the end of this episode, probably by the middle of it, you're going to be like, how in the world is he even on this podcast right now, let alone thriving in the industry after what happened to him, after the obstacles he had to overcome to get to where he is now. And he is thriving. So you are going to not only just be enthralled by his story, but you're going to learn a ton. He just brings a ton of value. He's an open book. I had so much fun talking with Ross today. You're going to have a ton of fun too, I think. So make sure, if you haven't yet, wherever you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you're listening or watching, make sure you're subscribed because every week we have something cool happening. We have an owner coming on who's just talking about their experience, sharing the things that they've learned, sharing the things that are working for them, sharing tips for newbies, for people who are trying to get into the laundromat industry, telling them what they need to know, what they wish they would have known. So do not miss it. Make sure you subscribe. I'll wait. Go ahead. Subscribe right now. All right. That's enough of that. All right. So today, we're celebrating 9 episodes. We're celebrating 1,000 downloads. We're way over that now, but we're celebrating 1,000 downloads and man, we're just going to have a blast. So before we get into the story with Ross though, I wanted to highlight one of the questions from the forum today. And if you've been listening and you haven't done it yet, you have another opportunity for redemption this week. Head over to the forums, laundromatresource.com/forums. Again, links down below or in the show notes. And go to the forums and check out what's happening over there. I've been excited. There's been more and more stuff going on. There's been more and more interactions, and I would really love for us to be a community and a place where we can help each other out and where we can share with one another and help each other succeed. And that's a great place to do it. But this week, Corey had a great question. It was one that kind of surprised me, actually. And I thought that some of you guys might have some input on this. He's looking at a laundromat. I'm assuming it's a he. It might be a she. He or she is looking at a laundromat, and they are that laundromat has a wash and fold service, and they're wondering if they should can the wash, dry, fold service. It does about 30% of the business. Can it? And instead, with that space, put in new machines. And man, that was a surprising question for me, because I am always trying to think the other way. How do I add more wash, dry, fold, or pick up and delivery, or how can I expand my business in that way? But Corey's point is they want to simplify the business without losing revenue, and they don't want the management headaches and the oversight and extra supplies that you have to purchase and all of that. And man, I thought it was a great question. So, if you have some input on wash, dry, fold, fluff and fold, or any of that you want to go help Corey out, head over to laundromatresource.com/forum and click on the Laundromats forum. We have a few different forums over there. The Laundromats one is where this one is, and go help Corey out and give some input onto that forum. One other thing I want to highlight before we jump into this, I know that you got to be itching to get into this, because I know I am. This podcast episode was, again, Ross was incredible. I had a ton of fun talking to Ross. But before we get in there, one more quick thing. I just want to highlight that if you're not a member yet of laundromatresource.com, you haven't signed up for that free membership. It's free. And we have a ton of tools and resources for you over there. And one of the things I wanted to highlight that we're rolling out this week, we're starting to roll them out, is we have a bunch of tools over there. Some of them are very simple. Some of them are a little more in depth. And we have some tools that are designed for people who are looking to get into the industry, want to know what to look for, want to know what that process is like, want to know how to analyze deals. And we have some tools that are designed for owners who currently own laundromats. And again, some of those are free without any obligation, no email or anything. Some of them, you just got to join the free membership. But if you haven't yet, I encourage you to go do that. It's really cool how the community is starting to grow over there. So go check that out. But this week, we're starting to roll out little mini video tutorials on all of those tools, just so I can explain to you what they are and how to use them, what they're good for, what to do with them, and just how they work. So I'm rolling those out, and I think that's going to be a really awesome little feature for you guys, for the members there. So go check those out. All right. Let's jump into this thing. We have a quick message, and then we're going to jump into our talk with Ross.
In today's world, if your laundromat is not online, you're losing business. Customers increasingly decide who to trust with their laundry by the quality of your web presence. But creating a professional logo and website that instills trust in potential customers and can be found on page 1 of Google can be difficult to create on your own and expensive to purchase through a traditional marketing company. As part of our mission to help laundromat owners succeed and find financial freedom through laundromat ownership, we are launching our done-for-you marketing service tailored specifically for laundromats. After ranking number 1 on Google with our own laundromat website and consulting with many others to help them do the same, we guarantee that we can build you a professional website that ranks on page 1 of Google within 6 months. Our joint expertise in the laundry industry and over 15 combined years in website design and online marketing allow us to offer affordable, transparent pricing for a high-quality web presence for your laundromats. You invest so much into providing your customers a quality laundry experience. Don't let anyone miss out on what you have to offer simply because they can't find you online. Let Laundromat Resource Marketing take care of your online presence so you can take care of your customers. Visit laundromatresource.com/getonline today for more information. That's laundromatresource.com/getonline or click on the link in the description.
All right, without any further ado, let's jump in with Ross. All right, Ross, how's it going, man? How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm super excited to hear your story. We've talked a little bit about it already, and I think it's going to blow people's minds that you're sitting here right now on this podcast. But thank you for being on. I appreciate it.
I'm excited.
Good. Well, hey, let's start with, why don't you tell people just a little bit about who you are and how you got into the laundromat industry? I get asked all the time when I tell people that I own laundromats, like, that's random. Like, how did you get into the industry? So it's random that you're in it. How'd you get in?
Yeah, I mean, and I always kind of struggle with what's the best path into how I got here. I mean, I always kind of wanted to work for myself, an entrepreneurial spirit in the past. It works better for me. And I had a business. I'm from Kentucky originally. So I had a business there, and I went through kind of the whole credit downturn. And so I started thinking about, now that I'm out here, what can I get back into that may be a little more resilient to economic? Of course, who knew COVID was going to happen?
Good grief.
So
yeah.
I started looking at that sort of stuff and what was happening throughout my daily life that I used and needed. And so it kind of started there, that it's like, laundries. I hate my 2 that are at my apartment. So starting using them, and it's like, why has it got to be this? Well, it started out that this seems good. Then it flowed into, why has it got to be this awful experience?
Yeah. It is awful. I hate folding clothes. I had half a mind to just start a fluff and fold business just so I didn't have to fold my own clothes. If nobody else used it, it was fine.
It's either folding or putting it away. I can't decide what makes it the list higher.
That's true. Actually, I need that service somehow. So we should incorporate that some way. New business venture.
Yeah.
Cool. So just to clarify, where are you located? You said now that you're out here, where are you located?
So I'm in Los Angeles, California. At the time, lived kind of in the Hollywood, Los Feliz area.
Okay.
Now I'm right over by Dodger Stadium, so still relatively close.
Go Dodgers. All right. Yes. I mean, when sports come back.
Yes.
So. Awesome. So that's I think that's a pretty cool way to kind of get in the industry, actually, because it's like, okay, I see, a good, business idea, but by finding it, you took a look at your life and seeing, what are the things that I use? What are the things that I need? And how can I, turn that into a business? I think that's really cool. And I think that's something that a lot of us really miss. We're always looking for, what's the big thing? What's the sexy thing? And, laundromats are a lot of things, but they're not super sexy. Just practical. And I think that that's solid, and one of the things, you mentioned the COVID stuff, and that's a whole other story. But one of the things that it's proven out is that, for a long time, I think the laundromat industry has said, hey, everybody needs a place to live, food to eat, and clean clothes to wear. And, and we're essential, essentially. And the COVID thing has kind of proven that out. I know a lot of us took some hits for a little while, but most of us were able to stay open and do business.
Yes, we were able to stay open. And so I'm definitely happy, even more happy in this business now, to be able to stay open.
Yeah. And I think it's also, at least for me, it makes me feel like we're doing something that matters. I think with the COVID stuff, the cleanliness is so important. It's always been important, and it's just showing how important it is. And
I never thought I would get to slap on essential to my sexy laundry business.
That's right. That is right.
I just kicked up a little bit on my importance level.
You are essential, let me tell you. All right. So you're in the laundromat industry, and, we'll talk about your specific businesses here in a little bit, but I want to, this is when you first reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm interested in doing this. Here's the gist of my story." I felt like I was punched in the stomach for you. And so why don't you tell people a little bit about, maybe lead us into it, talk to us about the process of getting your first laundromat, and how that process went. And then tell us what happened after you finally got it and punch us all in the stomach.
I think so. When I initially started thinking about it, I was in a fairly new relationship at the time. We were getting more serious. Now my husband, Russell, and he always had a career when I met him. And so when I started kind of talking, like, I think maybe I'll look at the laundry business, he was kind of like, But then, and from the start of when I really started looking to when we finally closed on the first one was almost exactly a year. So it was not quick. I had a lot of trials and tribulations of finding one that not only I liked, but I also had no money. I had no money. And so I would say there's a couple things, and maybe we can come back to it, but I decided kind of early on, like, what was my risk level? And since I didn't really have any other assets, I could risk a lot.
Nothing to risk. Yeah.
So I opened credit cards, lines of credits, and that's how I bought the first one, completely in my name in case it went bad, because we weren't married yet. I was like, we got to weigh this out. I can't destroy his finances and our relationship all at the same time if it goes bad. And funny enough, the very first laundry I had looked at ended up a year later being the laundry that we bought. But when I first saw it, inexperienced, I was still inexperienced when I bought it, but my vision when I first started looking at laundries was completely different, and it didn't fit that model in my mind. But over the year of every time I found one, I would go and do laundry, constantly going different times of day. And it allowed me to be in the laundry and talk to people, and nobody would look at me like, this laundry is, because some people are sell laundries without employees knowing or anything. And so fast forward, and it was like, this actually fits perfect. How did I miss this the first time? So ended up closing on that. It was very old. It was very, half of the equipment was out. I had already placed an order with PWS for, at the time, you could buy 100,000 with like beating heart.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I was like, these are my like 8 machines that I can order and replace. And I was there. I didn't have employees yet. I was there every day. And then Russell was going at night and meeting with the tech. And 5 days in, we get a call.
Wait. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Well, we got to prepare people before we get there. But I want to back up real quick before we get there, because you're about to drop a bomb. And but before we do that, so I do some coaching, and I get all the time people who want to get into the laundromat industry and don't have money. They, just the same situation as you. And so can you just elaborate a little bit more on how you, that's a huge obstacle for a lot of people.
And I have met people since then. And I definitely say, if you have a family, you have kids, then it 100% changes it. I mean, entrepreneurs tend to risk a lot, but if I had young children, I would choose probably differently. You can't implode your life trying to make a business work when you have some more things on the line, most likely. Credit is the American way, I guess you could say. And in my case, obviously, if you can do cash, then do cash. But I felt like that was the one obstacle kind of standing in my way. How can I mitigate the risk and still get into the business? So, I mean, when I say I looked at laundries left and right for a year, I was also looking at laundries that were on the market for like under 60,000. Mm-hmm. So I figured if I could get them down 10 or 20, what I learned after is it's not just purchasing the laundry. I mean, here in Southern California, utility deposits can be 3-5 times what the average bill has been. So, I mean, in a way, buying such a rundown laundry helped me because the bills were lower.
Right, yeah.
But, I mean, you need a lot more cash after you open. And the other thing, now being in the business for a few years, there may be many laundries that you can do in pieces. But if you buy a completely rundown, torn up store, don't think in your mind you can replace 4 machines and make some money and then go buy 4 more. You won't make it. I mean, at least that's my opinion. There are some people that have done it, but the risk is exponential the longer you make those steps. I mean, I was lucky that even though I was purchasing the first one we ended up purchasing that was so run down, the owners had been there for almost 17 years and they were there every day, the 2 of them. If one of them wasn't there, the other was, but most of the time, both of them were there. They lived and breathed that laundry. So despite how bad it was getting, the customers knew them. They were family. So they would tolerate all of that. So I came in having a customer base where normally that laundry just would have been nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. Let me ask you this. Would you, if you had to go back and do it all over again, would you still do it the way that you did it in terms of taking out, doing the credit, the lines of credit, the credit cards, all that stuff? Would you still do that?
I would do it again. I mean, I think I planned as much as I could for planning that. And luckily I had access to some great credit unions. I mean, you don't want to take your Chase card and cash advance it. They have astronomical rates, but credit unions a lot of times don't charge extra or only 1% more for a cash advance. So I was able to access cash even with credit that you can't normally do with your standard big banks. Right. So I wasn't accessing astronomical rates, or else I probably would have buried myself. Too bad. You can't pay 30%.
Right. Well, I mean, okay. So here's the reason I'm asking is because I just want people to hear that you can do it. There are ways to do it. I think the biggest barrier to entry in the laundromat industry, one is kind of a lack of knowledge. It's really hard to find concrete knowledge and numbers about laundromats. But the other huge barrier to entry is the financing, and because laundromats are expensive. But I want people to hear if you're working and can do it, which I don't necessarily recommend for a first laundry unless you have a flexible schedule, because this is not a collect the quarters once a week thing. We'll get into that. We'll get into it. Yeah.
But I mean, obviously you do have some better borrowing options if you have a verifiable income while trying to do something so unverifiable in the beginning. There are options if you have to go outside of standard Eastern funding, or the machines are pretty easy, I would say, but it's usually acquisition and remodel.
Yep. Yeah. So I just want to hear, I want people to be able to, who are interested, who maybe don't have the money, but want to get into the industry. There are ways. You just have to be more creative and you have to be determined, I think. And that's, we're going to find out here in a second that you are like the epitome of determined. But I think that is every successful person that I've talked with, either here on the podcast or just in life, they're just determined people, and they find these obstacles and they figure out a way to get through them, over them, around them, or whatever. And that's exactly what I think you did to get in that first laundromat.
It's probably where my inexperience actually helped me, because I didn't call up people. Like, I didn't really work with a broker for the most part until close to the end. And then the seller's broker actually double represented us. Mm-hmm. But up until that point, I didn't really work with a broker, because every time you talk to a broker, it's like, well, what cash do you have? And I'm like, I mean,
yeah,
cash I can get or cash I have right now.
Yeah. and define cash.
and I was a little too, I'm a very open person, and sometimes that hurt me, because then they'd be like, well, you just can't do it. And so then I learned to just start, if I had to represent cash, I started representing what I could deposit in the next week mm-hmm. through my creative ways. And so I just learned to really search out on my own, because you talk to any of the bigger brokers, and at the time, maybe it's changed, but they didn't really have anything. I mean, their listing started in the 200, and it's like, well, can you finance that? I'll finance it if you'll approve me. And they're like, well, you need 50% down. And I'm like, what? So that it kind of probably ended up being the thing that helped me to just, I combed Craigslist, I combed everything I could find outside of the standard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, kudos to you. I think that's great. People, will run up against this barrier of financing a lot of times, and that'll be the end of it, which actually turns out to be kind of a good thing for the rest of us, because, for those who can figure out ways to overcome the barriers, the rewards can be pretty good. So, kudos to you. Unless the rest of your story happens to somebody. So right now you have overcome this massive obstacle. You're probably exhausted by the day you close your laundromat, because you've worked so hard for a year trying to get this thing. And you're picking up some new equipment from PWS. You're getting ready to start, renovating and all that stuff. So all right, day of closing forward. Tell us your story.
Yeah, it's like day of closing, and the owners try to do such a good job and tape on each key. And it was on a table in the back room. I must have had 100 keys. I'm not joking. And this laundry was 1,800 square feet. And you're going, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. And I still have a bucket of keys.
I would call and be like, it's leaking. and they really did help me the first couple of days, and it was like I would bring out a thing of keys, and some of the customers would even know. They're like, that one, and I'm like, but so we're just trying to hold all the duct tape together and be like, can I get these new machines, and how do I get more? Because I've ordered washers, and now I'm looking at my dryers.
I know.
And so we were working with this great mechanic. Luckily, somebody had referred us to. He worked full time, and he was coming 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and he would work 2 or 3 hours and get a couple of machines done. So fifth night, Russell had stayed at the laundry so I could go home and sleep a little bit, because at that time, Saturdays and Sundays, the laundry opened at 5 instead of 6. And I was there until 11 at night. And he stayed to work with the mechanic, comes home about 12:30 or 1, 3:30. I hear my phone, and I let it go to voicemail, and I listen to the voicemail, and it's, Ross, the plaza's on fire. Come now. And it was my landlord. And the plaza that we were in, the little chicken shawarma restaurant next to us, had an electrical fire and burned the laundry down. And so we went rushing up, but I can't say I was prepared. I can laugh about it now, but
oh my gosh.
Day 5, I wasn't ready for it. I hadn't even made my first insurance premium. I'm like, are they even going to cover it? Like,
oh my gosh.
So yeah.
5 days in your laundromat. I mean, did it burn down?
No, I mean,
talk to me about this fire here a little bit. I don't know if everybody else is feeling what I'm feeling right now, but I cannot imagine going through everything you've gone through, overcoming these huge obstacles for a year to finally close on your laundromat, and you're trying to get it going and it catches on fire.
Yeah. We were right next door. It was an older plaza, so things have changed a lot, of course, with everything. So it burned only about 20% of our laundry.
Oh, is that all?
But it took out half of the roof, and ironically, it was the one night that it was raining in LA.
Wow.
Didn't help put the fire out, but obviously between the fire department coming through with an axe, and if there's a wall or door in the way, it's coming out.
Coming down.
And they go along the roof and punch holes all along the roof. So it totaled us. I mean, you first walk in and you're like, oh, the equipment, it's wet. It can probably sustain that. But what I've learned now is insurance is not interested in any of that. And I guess we were very lucky from the standpoint that our carrier at the time sent down somebody like 2 days after the fire, and she like hazmated suit up, and she's like, you're walking in like that? And we're like, she was like, don't take any of that stuff home with you. You'll never get the smell out. And she was right. But she walked in and she looked around and she's like, total, let me know if you need anything, and walked back out. She had another adjuster person with her. So, but I mean, now I can laugh about that. But at the time I'm like, wait, what? You're done already? What's happening? I wasn't prepared at all.
Oh my gosh.
So,
well, how could you be prepared for something like that? I feel like if that happened to me now, I still wouldn't be. You can't be prepared for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially we had to still wait for the fire department to clear it when we first got there, and I'm kind of one of those, like, if it's not a person, it's a thing. Like, we have insurance, blah blah. But I don't know if it was just my new project, my future that I saw. But when they cleared us and I walked in, I thought I was fine, and I went, and I just lost it. Yeah. And so it took me a minute, and then I was like, gosh, I think I can sleep in tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, at least you have to get up at 5. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, this has got to be the question on everybody's mind right now is, how in the world and why in the world do you own laundromats right now after that experience? How are you still in this business?
Well, I said at that point, it's like, I mean, when we start going into the insurance stuff, it's like they did it in 2 phases for us. So phase 1 was like, here's what it was worth when it burned. Here's your check. And it's like, okay, well, that pays off where I was. It actually gave us more money, but I hadn't even got to run the business yet. So I couldn't even say whether I liked it or didn't like it. So kind of typical to how I operate, I was like, then I guess this just means we should dive 2 feet in instead of 1.
Double down. I like it.
And I mean, going back to financing and no money, just that little bit from our first check not only paid what we had paid for the laundry, but paid our debt off. And banks look at snapshots. And the snapshot is, I have good credit, I have 0 debt, and I have a little bit of money in the bank. So now my lending power became pretty high. And I went running as fast as I could with that. So we immediately decided we were going to rebuild the laundry that burned.
Same location.
Yes.
Okay.
We were initially told 6 to 12 months. At month 6, when they hadn't even removed the roof yet, we knew that 12 wasn't going to happen. And we actually ended up taking over the little chicken restaurant that caused the fire, and that's now our Fluff and Fold. But I immediately started looking for a second laundry too. So
you really did jump back in both feet.
Yeah.
You're like, I owned one for 5 days. So I'm pretty much an expert. Let's go. That one burned down. So let's just build that one and buy another one. I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
So, and of course, similar to the first, and it taking a year, I did go into escrow on a couple, and they never kind of came to fruition. So by now we're like almost a year and a half into the rebuild, and it's still not built. And so it's like, well, now we better not go buy a second one. And about the time I decided that, I get a call going, I have this laundry that I think you're just going to love. And I was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to finance it, but let's see it.
Let's take a look.
So ended up looking into starting to buy that one. That, interestingly enough, that owner, as I'm buying it, files bankruptcy. So now it's frozen in court when I'm about to open. He comes in the middle of the night and takes everything, takes the money and locks the door and says closed.
Wow.
So that ended up being delayed, remodeled. Laundry 1, Laundry 2 opens the exact same day.
No way.
January 1st, 2017. I'm back into the business for my 6th day with 2 laundries at the same time.
For your 6th day. So how long did it take to rebuild? How long did it end up taking?
2 years.
2 years.
Almost exactly. And it was...
Wow.
It was an experience, it was learning, and it was infuriating. The laundry sat for 3 months with no power. That's all we needed was power. And by this time, I mean, insurance covers loss of income for 12 months. So we're at month 19 now. And the laundry was so close to being done in June. Everybody starts saying, you need to start paying. So I started paying on the equipment. I started paying my landlord, and then the laundry's not opening. So now I'm running out of money. Yeah. And I'm back to credit cards again. And we've got Laundry 2 under construction. Laundry 1 is ready to open, but I have no power, and I could not get the power turned on. And so I'm with the power company, you're going to court with me when I'm telling the judge why I can't pay bills because you haven't provided power to my business that is ready. So yeah.
I'm gonna suppress my power company rant, but I feel your pain, and that's got to be so frustrating.
We can thank channel 6, I think it was, Eye on Your Side. The day I signed the release with the power company that they could speak to channel 6 is the day I finally had this lovely, lovely lady. I wish I had been dealing with her from the beginning, that we had power in 2 days. And she was like, anytime you ever have anything happen again, you just call me direct. Don't go anywhere else. I was like, God, I want to kiss you right now. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of who you know and how loud your voice can be, unfortunately, a lot of times. Yeah. But
it does come down to that sometimes. And, I found that all over the place, even with the police department that I've had to deal with sometimes, sometimes I just had to call them every single day and multiple times a day just to get them out, when I had problems early on in my first laundromat. And yeah,
I really envy some people that along the boards that I follow and whatnot that live in a little bit smaller communities that can call up and they'll gladly come out. I mean, unfortunately, we are just really challenged, especially here in LA and I think in San Francisco with mental illness and unfortunately we're just not set up to handle
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a difficult situation kind of all around, I think. I think all up and down the West Coast even.
yeah.
I'm sure everywhere, but especially right now it's pretty bad. So okay. So now you opened your 2 laundromats on your 6th day, 2 years after your first one burned down, and you're up and running. How was it opening 2 on one day? That seems kind of overwhelming.
It was overwhelming because one laundry ended up being Dexter and one laundry ended up being Speed Queen. And I knew little to none about either of them, so it didn't really matter.
Right, yeah.
But I had brand new employees at both locations, and I was bouncing back and forth. And if an issue came up and I didn't know where water shutoffs were, it even though they were brand new, remodeled, it still felt like the first day from the first one before it burned. I didn't know anything. And I just felt like adding the fact that I couldn't be at one location at the whole time just was like, what did I do?
Yeah.
What did I do? And so it was a little crazy. But after a little while, then you start to get. I mean, most of the time, we found very early on, if you could just smile and like, please bear with us. 99% of the customers were like, it's fine. We understand. Like, they gave us a break. So, yeah.
Well, that sounds so overwhelming. And you're right. I mean, you do finally get a rhythm, but it's overwhelming. I remember being overwhelmed. I remember specifically getting the keys. Actually, I got like a bucket of keys with my first one. It's a little, 1,800 square foot one. And I literally have a cookie dough bucket full of keys that I've not even touched. I don't even know what they go to.
Yeah.
Most of them. But I remember getting that and just that overwhelming feeling of like, what do I do now? And like customers would ask me questions. I'm like, I know nothing about these machines. I know nothing about any of this stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. But I think you're right. Having that $1 million smile and just being like, sorry, like I'm trying really hard. I'm trying to figure it out for you. And, and just being generous.
And while we figured it out, we paid for a lot of stuff. But I just figured very early on that the people that were going to be our customers would appreciate us trying and giving them a little for their patience. And the people that were going to take advantage of us would just go away once we stopped doing that and got into our rhythm. So in the early days, it was just like, I'm sorry, here, hold.
Yeah.
let me start that again. Let me do this again. And that gave us the time to also just be like, with the people that were really willing to help us through it. And they're like, it's fine. Just sit down for a second.
Yeah.
Laundry tends to be a little bit like the bar.
It does.
And normally you're the therapist, but sometimes the customer really wants to help you out too. And we were very lucky that we had some really, really great customers. Still to this day we do, but very early on that were just willing to hand walk me and my employees through some of the stuff.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. And I found that like my laundromats are both in pretty rough neighborhoods, but even still, I found that by far, like 98 or 99% of my customers are great, solid people. And it's just it's the small minority that makes a rough neighborhood, generally speaking. So but that's awesome. So tell me this, we'll get into like details of your business here in a second. And I know you own more than 2. How many do you own now?
So we were up to 4. We bought a third one just within a year of the first 2 opening. And then last year built out a facility for our pickup and delivery, a dedicated facility that's close to the public. And we sold the second one that we had purchased. Okay. So we're at 3 right now. with several in the pipeline.
Oh, I like it. You are a glutton for punishment. I like this. So what does your day-to-day look like now?
I mean, it varies a little bit, but I would say now, fast forward a couple of years, I mean, my day-to-day is a lot more controlled most of the time.
Yeah.
If it was just dealing with the laundries, I have great staff now. So I can be fairly hands off with that. The pickup and delivery is still a growing thing. And I've struggled more to find my way in that business than the laundry business. So I put a lot more time into that.
Yeah. Well, and it's also something you're building from scratch. And it's not a new like industry, but it's a newer industry. It's a developing industry still. So I think everybody's still figuring things out a little bit. So yeah. So have a little grace. It's good. You've overcome bigger obstacles. It's fine.
Yeah.
What do you, okay. You mentioned that you have maybe a few in the pipeline, but what direction are you heading? Are you looking to add 50 laundromats? Or are you looking to, what are your goals? Do you have any?
So I've said 10 this year, but I'm running out of runway.
Well, it's the COVID thing, man. The COVID thing. All right, keep going.
So I would say I do have a number somewhere around 20 or 25.
Okay. That's your goal. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm relatively young at 39. So
hey, I think you're incredibly young. I'm 38. So we are just, man, the late 30s is the new early 20s, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, plus my parents both retired from IBM. My dad was there for 36 years and my mom for 27. And thank goodness they have pensions, but that rarely exists in companies anymore. Yeah. So I always, my husband and I always talk about now, like it's a lot different from our parents growing up, where if you had $1 million in the bank, you were just set, you were fine in retirement, but that included a pension. $1 million doesn't go as far anymore.
No, especially here. Yeah.
Especially here in LA.
Yeah.
So you got a lot more to try to build towards.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, 20 or 25. I like that. 10 this year. You better get rolling. I hope you have that few in the pipeline. Get them going. So I like that. But that's totally doable. And I think, even if you miss that goal, just having that goal and shooting for that goal, you're going to be further along than if you didn't have the goal and you didn't shoot for it. So I love that. Well, we have a little segment of the podcast that we like to call Down to Business.
Let's get down to business. Over and out.
And that's just an opportunity for us to talk about your business and some of the details. So let's run through some of those. So you talked about your location. How far of a radius are your laundromats and your facility in from each other?
Currently, I'm pretty close. I've been lucky in that standpoint, and I would definitely say when starting out, stay close. I mean, now I'm willing to go out further because I feel like I have a better handle on things. I have a better team that can handle certain things. But in the beginning, especially going through the fire, we were only about 15 minutes away. Of course, in LA, everything's...
Was that like 2 blocks or what?
Yeah, right. So I swear, well, I got to keep in mind when I'm looking at laundries right now during COVID that it's not actually 20 minutes when I'm driving 20 miles.
I know.
But I would definitely say in the beginning, stay closer. I've never been more than 30 minutes from any of our laundries. And we were very lucky in finding, we bought an old closed down laundry to build our facility, and it's right in the center of everything. My newer stuff is getting further out.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to move out sometimes, but yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to have them so close together. My first one, I was like 45 minutes away, and man, I mean, I just didn't expect, getting all these random calls about random things from, hey, there's 2 inches of water all throughout your laundromat, to there's, somebody drunk just yelling at the washing machine or whatever. Like, hey, you got to come out here, or like the washer won't open and my clothes have been in there 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't expect all of that. And so 45 minutes that's a long way to go when that stuff happens.
It sure is.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about, you have 3 right now. You had 4, you have 3 now, and you got a few in the pipeline. So when you bought your first one before it burned down, how long ago was that?
That was December of 2014.
Okay. 14. And then 2 years later, was that January of 17?
Yes.
Wow. That makes it sound even longer. January of 17 is kind of really when you got in the industry. I mean, you were in, but that's kind of that's when you were getting your real experience in. Okay. So you haven't been in super long. It's been a few years. Well, you kind of been in a long time and kind of not been in a long time. So that's kind of weird one. So where are you at VIN prices wise? I know LA is super competitive. Can you give us like just ballpark? You don't have to give us like too many specifics, but ballparks.
We're the highest, I think. I try to stay highest. So I try to check in on people around, and I will gladly raise my prices. But I typically, in the beginning, I raised about every 6 months because I started just above kind of at the market at the time. And I, the first year and a half, I raised every 6 months. Now I consistently raise at least once a year. We're also full cycle dry. I was one of the first in LA to go full cycle dry. I highly recommend it. I try to convince everybody to switch to it. And so we're, and people on the East Coast and Midwest, they'll probably hear this and just about croak. But out here, it's not very uncommon for 15 minutes a quarter, 12 minutes a quarter.
Yeah.
So when I started at $1 for 30 minutes, people were going bonkers about it for a very short minute. But and so now I'm up to $1.50 on my 30 pound, $1.75 on my 50 pound for 30 minutes. And my 20 pounds is my smallest. I don't do top loaders. Get rid of them. I don't care if your favorite customer loves them. If they leave, they're probably not your customer anyway. I promise you. So my 20 pound starts at $375, and we go all the way up to a 90 pound, and they're consistent in that price. I don't give discounts as you get larger.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I love, as I've been doing this podcast, just interviewing all kinds of different owners, I found that the ones that are doing the best tend to be the price leaders in their area. But they're also the ones bringing the most value to the customers, so they can charge that much. And
Dave said it on his, when he was on with you, that I want to compete on value, never on price. And I posted it as soon as I was listening to it. I
saw that actually,
because I was like, say it again for me.
Yes.
So I think. As entrepreneurs, sometimes we end up being our worst enemy. And yes, we have to listen to people, especially when we're new. But you've got to know when to filter out what advice is good, and where you as the entrepreneur need to make those business decisions that are business decisions. And you can't have 10 customers tell you that if you get rid of that top loader, that I won't be your customer, and you've got 1,000 other customers. I mean, when we first opened, I can tell you I had 2 people walk out of the store the first week we were open when they couldn't find a top loader. Yeah. But guess what? they were pushing a little cart or carrying a bag. They were not pushing the grocery cart or backing the truck up to the laundry. And it's not your customer. They have top loaders at home in the basement of their apartments. Everybody's got top loaders somewhere. It doesn't need to be in the laundromat. Period. That's all I say.
Preach. I love that. I got rid of the top loaders in my first laundromat, and I got a little bit of backlash, but not a ton, and not for very long. And people pretty quickly got used to it. I still have some in my second laundromat, and I am like dying to replace those suckers. Not just because they use a lot more, utilities, water, electricity. They don't last, all that stuff, but they break down more often. They're huge. People try to like stuff those things full, and it burns out the belts, and then they get mad at you. And I don't know. There's just so many problems with them that I would just love to chuck them off the roof or something. So someday I'll videotape that and put it on YouTube.
That would be great.
Yeah. And real quick, if you haven't listened to that episode from Dave Mins, and that's show number 2, go listen to that. Dave is awesome. I'll put it in the show notes, a link to it. Make sure you go listen to that. So yeah, Dave, he brought it with that value. Okay. Turns per day, you have like a ballpark average of what you're looking at?
So yeah, our first and second store, what is our first store now, we average between 7 and 9. Our third store was a smaller store that started out. My model when we opened 1 and 2 was that we would be fully attended, have drop-off service, and that was just the thing. And we opened store 3, and I'm like, losing money. And I was like, oh gosh, I made my huge first mistake in laundries with buying this third store, which brings me to being ready to pivot and make a change. Don't get so trapped in your mind and lose focus on that. Sometimes things have to change. So that store, we pulled all the employees. Now it's got a cleaner, and we don't do drop off. And that store is now a super successful store in a different way.
Yeah.
But now that we figured out the locking systems, the camera system, the lights, automated, all of that was a new thing for us. But now that we've got that figured out, that store causes me so much less headaches than any of the other stores. So I think Luke, blanking on his name right now.
Wilford?
Yeah, Wilford. Sorry, Wilford and his family.
Yeah,
I've talked to them at Laundry Excellence and every clean show. I love their story and catching up on how many more they've opened, because every time I blink, they have 2 more. So I'm trying to catch up, Luke. I'm coming. But he said one of the very first times I met him, like we had to decide a long time ago what model we were going to go with, and base that model and stick with it, because it can make things a lot faster when you stick with one particular direction with your stores on how fast you can acquire them. So I always remember that. And now I'm starting to really like my unattended store.
I bet. Well, what's funny is that the next episode after your episode is with Luke. I interviewed him earlier today for that episode. So he's bringing it too. So make sure, if you haven't subscribed to this podcast, subscribe, because this episode is already it's jam-packed full of wisdom. I know you got some more stuff to say, and next episode's going to be awesome too.
I'm keeping a very close eye on his new card system. I think it's going to end up in one of our laundries in the very near future.
Hey, he will appreciate you saying that. And I think I told him today, a little sneak peek, but I told him today that, he is obsessed with, serving the customer, and he is obsessed with operations. And I said, if you're going to buy a card system from somebody, you want to buy a card system from somebody who built a system for themselves, and he's obsessed with customer satisfaction and with efficient operations. And so he's got a good thing going, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
So stay tuned next episode for that. All right. So you have both attended and unattended. Are you all coin store?
No. So store 1 and store 2 were hybrid. They're spider watch stores.
Yeah.
Store 3 and on have been card only.
Yes. Oh, that is like the dream, man. The dream.
I'm not going back to coin. I'm happy for all you dollar coin people. It's not gonna be me. And so I'm just not only from. I mean, I'm all for a customer paying any way possible. However, if you're going to be a 1 store or 2 store, you can do that. I just don't feel you can be a 25 store owner and collect quarters. I'm going to pay somebody $100,000 a year to collect quarters, and they're
going to skim more off the top.
The operational side of making sure that person is not stealing when it's quarters is going to be at 25 stores. I couldn't track it. I know me.
Yeah.
If I can't give you a receipt off of my credit card, then I can't track quarters like that. I'm not interested.
No, it's way too much. And I think you're right. I think, when you get to scale, you got to think of, things change and your operations need to change and your systems need to change. And so that's definitely one that I think
people undervalue themselves. You got into this business, hopefully, to be an entrepreneur and to change something in your life, whether it be now or in the future, or both, hopefully. Yeah. In the beginning, as our store got busier, I couldn't be gone for more than 4 days. I had it calculated. Like, if the flight left in the morning and I couldn't collect before we left, like, I had 4 days only, and it had to be an early 4-day, not a late 4-day. So I didn't want the business to chain me in that sort of way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people get into the business for the freedom. And when you start scaling up like that, you don't have a system of payment that gives you that freedom. You lose your freedom real quick, yes. even at a couple of stores, it ends up taking a lot of time. So
my second store was so busy. We had to replace all of our coin drops and coin boxes in under 2 years, just because of the lint and the amount of use. And so it's not a simple calculation of, I'm paying 3% or 4% of credit cards. And it is an expense to set up, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's your long-term goal.
Yeah. I think it's great. How many hours would you say you spend, on your business now? I know early on you were there all the time, every day. It's, 3:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday right now. So, back to the laundries themselves. I'm probably inside the laundries less than 5 hours a week. Mm-hmm. I like people to still see my face. Especially pretty face. So
it's important for my employees too. They can always reach me, but it's important that customers also see you with your employees, and that you're just not some invisible owner that drives their employees.
Right.
We're open a lot of holidays, and I make it a point, especially on holidays, to be in my stores if we're in town, because people have the stigma that you were forced to work. And I allow all my employees to choose on the holidays, and we pay for it, holiday pay. So, but yeah, it's important to be seen. But otherwise, outside of the normal running, I'm probably 5 hours. Pickup and delivery, like I said, is still more to me. So I probably spend 15 or so hours on that. And I take phone calls all the time, but really working is is probably down to 20 hours a week at this point.
And that's pretty good.
In between projects.
Right. Yeah. And you're looking for other laundromats and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
So yeah, but still, I mean, that's pretty good. That was less than I was expecting for, pickup and delivery service that you're growing right now. So I think that's awesome. Not bad for, half a week's worth of hours, being able to work on a few different businesses. So that's pretty cool. Well, awesome. That's the down to business. Now comes my favorite couple of segments of the podcast. The first one is this. It's called the secret sauce.
Listen up. It's the secret sauce.
And in the secret sauce, it's, directed towards laundromat owners. And, I'm just looking for an answer to this question. What's one thing that's working well in your businesses right now that other laundromat owners can implement into their business that might help them improve their business?
My team, my employees. It was a pro tip very early on that I got from Enrique Del Riviero. He owns several laundries here in LA. He used to be the president of the Southern California, and he said to me very early on when I had escaped to one of the luncheons after the first two opened, and I was just running in and out, taking phone calls and stuff. And he was like, I know right now money is probably hard and you can't see it, but as soon as you can make it happen, don't be your employee. Be the employer and the entrepreneur. And
Yes.
I've said it over the years since then, that when he said it to me, I was like, I'm paying my payroll and credit cards. How am I going to hire more people? But as soon as I did it, it allowed me to start focusing on the customers again, start focusing on the employees that were there and training them more. And it was, I don't know if it was just luck or a little bit of everything, but how quickly it turned around to the laundries going from red to green after doing that. So
yeah, getting good people in there.
You've got to have good people, and you've got to be constantly looking and reassessing what's working and not working. And you can't do that when you're stuck behind the counter. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, I was still there just as much, but I was there in the capacity of owner, not as the employee.
Yeah, I think that's solid advice. And, just having the right people in there helping you, giving you the space, like you said, to work on your business, not in your business, to use kind of a cliche term, but it's so true because it's so easy to get sucked into the whirlwind of, just all the things that need to happen to make a laundromat run, that it can be really difficult to take a step back and think, okay, well, how can I improve this business? Okay, how can I move us forward? How can I expand and grow into new laundromats or pick up and delivery business or whatever it is that you want to do? Or how can I, make this more efficient? Or how can I make this customer experience better? All those questions are working on your business, and it's hard to do when you're the one doing everything.
And I think we've seen it more now in the last couple of months with all the COVID stuff, is that we are in our local communities, and our communities are our customers and are my employees. So we invested early on in that. I did try some stuff when we first opened, door hangers and different advertising, but I quickly found my best advertising money was spent directly to my customers. Mm-hmm. And so we did pizza parties. We did grand openings when we first did. We try to do a yearly party now, which is like checking in and cake. And we just did one last month. And we did free laundry all day. And it pays off so much better than any other advertising I could do. And I get to interact and spend time with my customers that I kind of miss as I'm running in and out sometimes.
Yeah. I love that. You sent me, when you reached out to be on the podcast, you sent me a video of one of those parties and one of those days. It was, first of all, that was an awesome video. I don't know if you want to share that, but we can link that if you want to share it. If not, that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll link that in the show notes and in the description. So check this video out. It's really cool. It's just a video of this party that he's throwing, and he does free laundry for his customers, and it has some interviews with some of the employees, and what Ross is doing and how that's affecting their lives as employees, and interviews with some of the customers and just how much they appreciate it. And it's really cool. I think that's a bonus secret sauce.
I think some of it comes from the frustration of that, especially here in LA, going back to the homeless and mental health, that it seems so big, and where can we play a part in that? And a shower and clean clothes is a dignity thing that everybody deserves, and now we have that one tiny piece that we can offer so easily. So it's just a matter of figuring out, rather you team up with another organization to help implement that. But I definitely feel like it's something that can be implemented everywhere. You just have to find how it's going to work within your business. And that's what we constantly try to expand on now. And it's just been a better fit for us to focus real local and starting with our team, our employees, and helping improve their life, and they're fixing their needs, and it makes them much better employees when they're not worried about something that I don't even really consider. So that's what we're doing.
Man, epic secret sauce segment. I loved every single word that you had to say there. I think that was so good. And I know that, any other owners out there that are, listening to this, if you can implement some of this stuff into your business, it's really going to benefit you. I know I'm going to try to implement. I was pretty inspired by that video that you sent me. And so I'm working out how to kind of implement something like that into my laundromats too. So pretty cool. Thanks for inspiring me, at least. And I'm sure a ton of other people. The next segment we like to call Pro Tips.
Pro Tips.
And Pro Tips is this. It's more directed towards people who are trying to get into the industry. Maybe they don't own a laundromat yet, but they're interested and they want to buy one. So what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who is wanting to buy their first laundromat?
Research, and put yourself in it. If laundry is definitely going to be what you're going into, don't be afraid to start going every day and doing laundry. There's no better way to check out a laundry than being there for more than 5 minutes. I think pretty much every guest, and you continue to say it, ask for help, ask for advice. Yes, at some point in the process, you're going to have to get a broker, and probably depending what you're buying, you're going to have to retool it and have to get involved with a distributor. Find somebody that isn't taking your money for another soundboard. There are some wonderful distributors, wonderful agents, but just like in everything else, somebody could have the best intentions, but they're also in business for themselves too. So you've got to be responsible for your money. They're responsible for their money, and you're responsible for yours. But there are people that are around to help, and will.
I think that pro tip is genuinely worth thousands of dollars. I do. I genuinely think that, because
text too.
Yeah, right.
My Venmo.
Yeah, I was just saying, who takes checks, man? I'll write you checks all day long. It doesn't mean anything to me. But genuinely, I think that is true, because when I've told this story before, but when I got in the industry, I had to rely on the people whose income depended on me buying a laundromat. And just you saying the words, they're being responsible for their money, you be responsible for yours, would have drastically changed my experience getting into the industry,
Yeah.
and man, I just listen, if you're looking to get into this industry, listen to listen to this segment again, write every word of it down, post it on your bathroom mirror, chant it every morning, whatever, because honestly, that's probably the best advice that you're going to hear when you're looking to get into the industry. And unfortunately, the reason for that is because there's just so much secrecy in the industry right now. Not everybody, but there's a lot of secrecy, and there's not a lot of accountability. And
Right.
again, there's a ton of really great people in this industry, brokers, distributors, everything. There's so many really good ones, but there are some who are out for their own agendas, and it might not necessarily line up with yours. And so you need to be responsible for your own money. You need to do research. You need to reach out. There's forums, there's Facebook groups, the podcast. You're hearing from these incredible owners who are giving their wisdom for free. Take it. Ross has earned every single piece of wisdom that he has shared and more.
And I don't think that goes for just buying either. You start looking into remodeling, retooling, and some contractors would hear what we pay to have a laundry redone and be like, "What, are you crazy? I could do that for half the price." Laundry is not a typical, especially if you go permit route and stuff. It's a different animal than a house. It's why there's residential real estate brokers and commercial brokers. Laundry is different. Don't only be focused on price. Get referrals and meet with people. I mean, I say we get into arguments a lot between brands these days, and I don't know that brand is really where you need to be focusing anymore. They're all pretty good. They all have their pluses and minuses. I think if you have a good distributor and salesperson, you're going to see them after the fact. If you're only looking for somebody to drop off some equipment to you, then buy it anywhere you can get the best price. But I don't fix it. So I need a team of people behind where I'm buying. And I've been lucky that I have worked with some great people and continue to at many different companies. So
totally, man, I love that. I think that's gold.
There's plenty to go around.
There is plenty to go around. I love that. All right. Well, one other question that I wanted to ask, and I was curious if you have maybe like a resource that you would recommend to people, either to help them grow personally or help them grow their business. Is there like a book or a website or blog or any kind of resource that you would recommend?
I definitely love Facebook, the Laundromat Owners, Laundromat for Success, because it's so easily accessible. CLA can be a good resource. And then, unfortunately, this year, Laundry Excellence was canceled. And I went to my first one. It's every other year, so 2 years ago. And I loved it. I'm one to be a big share, and then I just want to be surrounded by people that have been in the business longer than me that are willing to share too. I get some of my best advice has all come from people that were in the business before I was. And so I like the sharing part of it all. I mean, we all want the same thing at the end of the day, to take care of our family and be happy and successful. And so, let's just talk all day long. How about that? How about you just tell us stuff all day long? Because I love everything you're saying. And I think that you're totally right. Like the networking aspect of all of these groups and these events and stuff like that, that is where you're finding, huge value, because you're talking to people who are doing it.
right? You're talking to people.
And you're often talking to, I mean, we happen to be relatively close, but you're often like Dave in Ohio. Dave's not going to tell you something that's going to be awful for your business here just so you're not competition to him. I mean,
right, yeah.
You tend to get advice that's based on experience or that I've been through it. I've made the mistakes and had the costly things happen. And I mean, here in LA, I just don't even think my closest competitor is really my competition. We get too caught up on worrying what the person's doing instead of just stay in your lane in that instance and run your business the way it needs to be run, and people will still come. I mean, we have choices in everything.
Yep. Awesome. Well, this has been incredible. I feel very honored to have you on. I feel very grateful that you came on and you've shared so much with us. I know for a fact that people are going to love what you had to say. And I don't know if people want to hear more from you or contact you or just drop you a note and say, thanks for what you shared or any of that stuff. What's the best way that they can get in contact with you?
They can email me at Ross, ROSS, at washclubla.com. And that comes directly to me always. And I'd be happy to jump on a phone call or email with you. I will add, because I missed it way back in the beginning, since I have been through a fire, when you think you have enough insurance, add another 100 or 200. There's a big difference between replacement costs of laundry equipment, which is what we always focus on when we buy insurance. But like in the case of a total loss of the laundry, we had to bring electric up to code, plumbing up to code. And in a laundromat, that is not your typical plumbing and typical electric. So we were actually heavily underinsured on our first one. So that was my very early on lesson. And now I scream it everywhere I can. Buy more than you think you need.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's good advice. Good advice, because man, you find yourself in a big hole that way for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ross at Wash Club LA, I'll have that in the description and in the show notes. And the show notes will be on laundromatresource.com/show9. So check it out there. You can get links to everything there. And man, thank you so much for being on today. It has, like I said, it's been an honor and it's been a lot of fun too.
Well, thanks for being another resource for people to go to and to get in contact with other owners that are willing to share like you are. So yeah, it's been fun. It's by far my favorite thing that I've been doing lately is just, talking to you guys and learning from you guys. I've been learning so much. So it's been a lot of fun. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. And hey, we'll have to get together since we're so close sometime and go grab some lunch or something. That'd be fun. Yeah. Now that they're starting to open again. I know. Finally. All right. Well, we'll talk to you later. Thank you. I told you that this episode was incredible. Can you believe that 5 days after he bought his first laundromat, it burned to the ground and it took 2 years to get it rebuilt, and he opened 2 on the same day when he opened them? Oh my gosh, man. I cannot even believe, let alone the financing things that he went through getting there. Oh, there's just so much about Ross that I love, and so much about his story that I respect Ross so much for everything that he's gone through and that he's overcome. And now that he is thriving in the laundromat industry, not only is he thriving, but he's here in LA, which is a highly, highly competitive market here for laundromats. So man, it was a privilege for me to spend that time with Ross. I hope you feel the same way. Next week, again, we have an incredible episode. It's going to blow your mind. The owner that we're talking to next week is going to blow your mind. So definitely subscribe if you haven't yet. And man, I just wanted to remind you, go to the forums, start up a conversation, ask a question, go answer somebody else's question. laundromatresource.com/forums.
Go check that out, and also go sign up for the membership. It's free. There's a ton of information and resources. Be a part of the community. Be a part of what's happening, because I will tell you that I am working really hard right now on making that a place where laundromat owners will find tons and tons of value. Tons of value. So come be a part of it now. Come be a part of building it with me. I am like incredibly excited about what it's becoming, and I have crazy visions for what it can become and what we can do together. So come and do it with me. laundromatresource.com, and then click that join, or laundromatresource.com/join, and just be a part of it. And look forward to just the new things that are rolling out, and help me figure out what we need to do to make it an even better place. So that's show number 9. My mind is blown. I bet your mind is blown too. And just thanks for spending this time with us. This is Jordan for the Laundromat Resource Podcast, show number 9. And we'll see you next week to blow your mind again. So go rest up and heal up. Peace.